On this channel, we provide useful programming information with practical code examples. This time, it's about CSS pseudo-classes and pseudo-elements. You can learn about pseudo-classes like hover and valid, as well as pseudo-elements like before and selection. Enabling subtitles will make the code descriptions easier to understand. Please make use of it. Now, let's take a look at pseudo-classes. CSS pseudo-classes are functions that apply styles to elements based on specific conditions such as element states or hierarchy. They allow you to add special styles based on element states or positions, making it useful for representing dynamic situations that can't be specified by regular classes or IDs. Pseudo-classes make it easy to implement dynamic UIs and styling based on specific conditions, enabling design that responds to user interaction or content structure. The basic syntax of pseudo-classes is as follows. Selector is the target element. The pseudo-class part represents a pseudo-class that indicates a specific state or condition. Colon is used to select pseudo-classes. Next, let's take a look at commonly used pseudo-classes. Hover applies styles when the mouse cursor hovers over an element. In this example, when the mouse hovers over a link, the text color changes to red. Focus applies styles when an element receives focus. It is mainly used for form elements and links. In this example, a blue outline appears when an input element is focused. Active applies styles to an element when it is active, while it is being clicked. In this example, while the button is being clicked, the background color changes to green. The empty pseudo-class is used to apply styles to elements that have no children. The target element must not contain text nodes, whitespace, or comments. In this example, if an element with the box class contains nothing, a gray background and a black dashed border are applied to that element. If whitespace is present, the style is not applied. Valid is a style applied to form elements with valid input values. The valid style is applied when conditions specified by HTML attributes like pattern or type, e.g., email, are met. Invalid is a style applied to form elements with invalid input values. The invalid style is applied when a form element does not meet HTML validation rules, e.g., type equals email. In this example, a green border is displayed if the entered text is 5 or more characters long, as specified by the pattern attribute. If the entered text is less than 5 characters, a red border is displayed. In range is a style applied when a numeric input element holds a value within a specified range. The in range style is applied when the conditions specified by the min and max attributes in HTML are met. Out of range is a style applied when a numeric input element holds a value outside the specified range. The out of range style is applied when the value exceeds the range specified by the min or max attributes. In this example, when a value within the range specified by the min equals 18 and max equals 99 attributes, 18 to 99 inclusive, is entered, a blue border is displayed. When a value outside the range is entered, an orange border is displayed. N child applies styles based on the position of a child element within its parent. You can specify a number or an expression for n. In this example, the text of the second list item becomes blue. By specifying even or odd, you can apply styles to odd or even elements. In this example, different background colors are applied to even and odd rows. This can be used for striped table designs, for instance. First child applies styles to the first child element of a parent. In this example, the text of the first, small, element is styled as bold with a shade of blue. Last child applies styles to the last child element of a parent. In this example, the text of the last, small, element is styled as bold with a shade of green. The has pseudo class in CSS functions as a parent selector. Using this pseudo class, you can select a parent element based on the presence of child elements. In this example, the border is applied to p elements containing span elements with the child class. Not applies styles to elements that do not meet specific conditions. In this example, the text of q elements, except those with the 2 inches class, is styled as bold with a shade of blue. The where pseudo class is a special CSS selector that sets the specificity to 0. This is useful when you want to handle multiple selectors collectively and apply styles without affecting the specificity of the selected elements. The is pseudo class groups multiple selectors and selects elements that match any of the conditions. The is pseudo class itself carries the same specificity as normal selectors, but it applies styles based on the highest specificity among its internal selectors. In this example, where and is are used to apply styles to p elements and span elements within the detail class. The text decoration style set by where is overridden by subsequent CSS. However, the style set by is has a higher specificity and is not overridden by subsequent CSS. Checked applies styles when a checkbox or radio button is selected. In this example, a red border is displayed on the checked input element. Disabled applies styles to disabled form elements. In this example, a gray background and "Not Allowed" cursor are applied to the disabled button. Visited is used to apply styles to visited links. In this example, after clicking and visiting a link, the text color of the A element changes to purple. Visited has some style restrictions for privacy protection reasons. This prevents external sites from inferring the user's visit history. The properties that can be changed with visited are limited to the following. On the other hand, properties other than these, e.g., display, visibility, position, etc., cannot be changed with visited. This prevents user privacy from being leaked through visit history. First of type selects the first element of its type, with the same tag name, within its parent element. In this example, the text of the first var element and code element in the first example class is styled in bold blue. Last of type selects the last element of its type within its parent element. In this example, the text of the last var element and code element in the last example class is styled in bold green. Nth of type applies styles to the nth occurrence of elements of the same type. In this example, the text of the second var element and code element in the nth example class is styled in bold orange. Next, let's take a look at pseudo-elements. Pseudo-elements in CSS are used to apply styles to specific parts of the selected element. Unlike pseudo-classes, pseudo-elements focus on specific parts of an element rather than the whole element. For example, they are used to add content before or after an element or apply styles to specific characters or lines. Pseudo-elements are usually written with double colon after the selector. This is to distinguish them from pseudo-classes. Selector is the target element. The pseudo-element part represents a pseudo-element that refers to a specific part or aspect of an element. You can specify a pseudo-element by using double colon. Now, let's take a look at some commonly used pseudo-elements. Before inserts virtual content before an element's content and applies styles to that part. It is useful for inserting icons or labels, for example. In this example, the text, note, is inserted before span elements with the class, note. The content specified here does not exist in the actual HTML. It is added virtually through CSS. This means that you cannot directly manipulate content added via JavaScript, etc. After inserts virtual content after an element's content. It is typically used to add supplementary or decorative content after an element. In this example, a golden star icon is added after the span element with the 5 stars class. The placeholder pseudo element is used to style the placeholder text in form elements. By default, it is usually displayed in light gray text, but with the placeholder pseudo element, you can change the style to match your design. In this example, the placeholder text color for the input element is set to a 70% transparent blue, font size to 14px, and italicized. First letter applies style to the first letter of a block level element. It is used for typographic effects like those seen in magazines or newspapers, where the first letter is emphasized. Note that this pseudo element is only effective on block level elements and cannot be directly applied to inline elements like span. In this example, the first letter of the paragraph will be twice the size, bold, and blue. First line applies style to the first line of a block element. It is particularly used for text paragraphs, allowing you to apply different styles to the first line. In this example, the first line of the paragraph will be bold and green. Selection applies styles to the part of the text selected, highlighted, by the user. With this, you can change the background color and text color when the text is selected. In this example, when the text of a span element is selected, the background becomes yellow and the text turns black. The source code for this video can be downloaded from the official website. If you like, please visit the URL in the description to aid your learning. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate your support by subscribing to the channel.